Hi, this is Eric Martin with Board Game Geek. I'm here with David Zuckman from Obscure Reference Games, looking at Overlords of Infamy, which is a non-final production copy here.
Not final,
We're just
but
talking
close.
about the gameplay and what's going on in here.
Sure.
We are one of these Overlords.
Yes, you take on the role of an evil overlord with the goal of making everyone as miserable as possible.
All right. How do we do that?
Well, to do that, you're going to complete nefarious plots. So at the beginning of the game, everybody gets to choose between two of the knavery plots. The knavery plots are basically the beginner plots. So take a look at them and go ahead and choose whichever one sounds most appetizing to you. I'm going to choose Vandalize the 7 World Wonders because that's funny.
Okay. And you're choosing based on their certain abilities, or there's nothing?
So for example, the Overlord that you've chosen has an affinity for fauna, which this is Tyranno de Bergerac. So you might want to go for a plot that has fauna in it since it's more readily available to you.
Okay. All right. And I should mention as well, there are many Overlords in the game.
Yes, there are.
Right.
There's 11 possible Overlords, 2 of which were designed and chosen by fans during our Kickstarter.
Okay.
So that's Tyranno de Bergerac and the Dead Pirate Roberts. But these Overlords are all playable. Every single one of them has a different affinity and a different special ability. It makes them unique each time you play.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So the one that you've chosen, Tyranno de Bergerac, has an affinity for fauna. So affinity generally means if you get a particular resource and it happens to be your affinity, you get 2 instead of 1 anytime that you collect it.
Okay.
But you also have a special ability, which we'll get into a little bit later in the game when it makes sense. I've chosen to play as Waffles, the evil corgi, and my special affinity is for lackeys. So when I quote-unquote recruit additional lackeys, I get an additional 1.
Okay.
So we start with 3 lackeys in our lair. So your lair would be right here.
Okay.
That is a village that you could go to recruit lackeys later. And then you've already chosen which plot you like. It goes face down on the active plot here. And then you take your turn to try to collect those resources.
Okay.
So each turn is divided into 4 phases. The first phase is called the hero phase. During that phase, you look at the world tension tracker. If the numbers have passed, if the world tension tracker has passed the 3, the 6, or the 9 during the previous player's turn, then you get to move the adventuring hero.
Okay.
Which means you roll this dice, and then you get to move the adventuring hero however many spaces that you've rolled. Now that could do several things. The first thing is if you run into somebody's lackey, it kills their lackey, it's removed from the board, and whatever resource it happened to be standing on, the hero takes with him back to his headquarters.
Okay.
If it lands on a map space that you have, an open map tile, it will liberate that tile, which means destroy it, and whatever resource is on there, he takes back to the center. And there are other things that could happen. He could enter another hero's lair, which makes them give up some of their resources, or if they have a relic, they have to give up a relic. Relics are collected by going into the kingdom and stealing one and coming back.
Okay.
Or you could throw him into a pitfall, and he has to skip the next time that he would move. Falls into a pit, has to climb his way out.
Okay.
So during that's the first turn. Since the tension tracker has not moved past the 3, 6, or the 9 yet, we would
skip
move
that.
Exactly. We move into the second phase, which is the action phase. During your action phase, you have 3 action points to spend on any number of actions. There's a large list. You can repeat them as many times as you want. You can do them in any combination. There are some that require more than 1 action each, and it will tell you so.
Okay.
But that's a little bit further in the game. So for my turn, what I want to do is I want to try to collect my resources. So I need Conjure Ore, which are basically magic stones, and Spark Tech, which are basically electrical components. And I don't have those available to me. So I'm going to choose to exploit the land, which means I get to take 2 map tiles, look at them, I choose one of them and put it adjacent to my lair. The other goes back to the bottom.
Okay.
So that's 1 action point that I've spent. I'm going to spend another action point to go collect that Spark Tech now, which means I get it here on my sheet. But anytime that you harvest a resource or recruit a lackey, it moves forward the world tension.
Okay.
So this would go to 1 now. Now if I were to spend my last action point, I'm going to go recruit an additional lackey who goes to your barracks immediately ready for use. And recruiting a lackey also moves forward the world tension.
Okay. So you're not
next-
really recruiting, of course.
Yeah, recruiting.
Yes. So.
Nice way of saying it.
That's right.
So we move to the next phase, which is the espionage phase. This is where most of the player interaction will happen.
Okay.
So you can, depending on your infamy level, we all start at level 1 infamy. It goes up as you complete your nefarious plots. You get to do various actions to your opponent. The level 1 infamy espionage action is called Glean Intel, which means you get to look at your opponent's plot.
Okay.
But as it goes up, you might start to put your lackeys in their area, collect their resources. There's another way you can steal directly from them and grab their resources.
Okay.
You can sabotage their plot, and then when it gets to level 5, you can assassinate one of their lackeys and steal whatever resource they were standing on. Those are the various espionage actions, but we can't do that until we're both touching our contested area that we share. That's this red section here. So those are areas that are on the board. They're free to go to as long as you exploit the land and you're adjacent to it. You can go to that spot. But if somebody else wants to go to that spot, they can knock your lackey out off the board and then also take a resource from there as well.
Okay.
So that's the general turn order. Then there's the end phase. During the end phase, there are certain abilities that happen at that point. We don't have any of those yet, so it would go to your turn.
Okay.
So now you would try to complete your plot. And what do you need for your plot?
That's right. I need some fauna and something else.
Food. So
fauna and food.
Right. So you have fauna that's available to you on your lair, so you can send a lackey there. And because you have an affinity for fauna, you get 2 of them instead of 1. So here you go.
All right.
And that moves forward the world tension here. And now you have 2 more action points available to spend. So at this point, you probably want to exploit the land.
So you're going to build up your own world that you can exploit as you wish.
Correct.
Based on everything else. All right.
Correct.
Let's do something else here.
So that's a conjure ore.
3.
Sure. Do you want to get the conjure ore or do you want to recruit a lackey? Because both
Conjure
are available.
ore.
There you go.
This is another resource.
Another resource. Okay. So now we would go into your espionage phase. Again, we don't qualify yet for that. So it goes back to my turn.
So we're building up our own lands initially, but with the long-term goal of getting completing our plots.
That's correct.
And we're going to be building up to other plots as well.
Correct. So as your infamy level increases, levels 1 and 2 you can only choose from the knavery plots. At levels 3 and 4 you can choose knavery or villainy. Excuse me. At level 5 you can choose from domination.
Okay.
So they get a little bit harder as you go up, but they're also worth more misery points, and they're also worth additional special actions that are available. For example, if we weaponize the local flora, it'll allow you to prevent an act of espionage that's done against you at some point during the game.
Okay.
And there's various other actions available. Domination plots are much harder to do, but they're worth a lot more points, and they also have game-changing abilities. For example, divide by 0, and upon completing that plot, other overlords other overlords may not harvest resources from contested areas for the remainder of the game.
Okay.
So they're game-changing effects.
Okay. All right. And what's the end? What's the goal? We're trying to.
So as you complete your plots, you're going to be harvesting resources, recruiting lackeys. I'm sorry. The world tension tracker is going to be increasing. When it gets to 10, a world event will happen. So the world events could be good, they could be bad, they could do nothing at all, they could affect everybody, they could affect just you.
Okay.
This one is called First Annual Evil Overlord Convention and Potluck. So you brush up on your networking skills and you get to take a single resource of your choice. This happens to be a good one, and it goes for everybody. After a certain number of these have been revealed, for example, in a 4-player game, it'd be 10 world events, then everybody gets one final turn, and whoever has the most misery points is denounced the winner.
All right. Okay.
So that's the general idea of the game. As I'm sure you can probably tell at this point, it's very tongue-in-cheek. The things you're doing are super silly, but that's part of the fun.
Silly anvil resources over here.
And these, all the resources that will be in the game are actually wooden resources. It's something that we unlocked during the Kickstarter. So all these goodies, they're not going to look just like this when they're finally printed, but they're going to be very similar to this.
Right.
You also get the Adventuring Hero. And we're working on making it solo play available. That was something we unlocked during the Kickstarter. And also a 5th player is something we got in the works.
You got a different map, or?
Well, no, somebody plays as the hero.
All right.
Yeah. So that's Overlords of Infamy.
All right. Thanks very much for the overview, David.
You bet. Thanks for having me.